Oh, we're here. Hello, everyone. I'm Joanna Penn, and I'm here with Orna Ross for the Alliance of Independent Authors monthly Q&A. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna. Hi, everyone.
And it is March, I think. So we are a quarter of the way through the year already. It's way too scary. These things come around super fast. And we actually have a ton of questions today, but we're going to start. Orna, give us an update on the very exciting indie author fringe.
Yes, that is what we are working on busily at ALLi at the moment, particularly David Penny and J.R. Talley. We are all kind of flat out putting together a fantastic session. So some of you will remember Indie Recon from last year, and what we have done is kind of changed a lot, changed everything really, though it does grow out of that original work. So we used to have a 3-day conference in April. We decided it would be much more useful to have, instead of having 3 one-day conferences all together, to break them out over the year. So we are running one in conjunction with London Book Fair, one BEA and one Frankfurt. Now, when I say in conjunction, it's completely the wrong word. We are fringe to these events. So these are not in any way sort of official London Book Fair events or anything like that, but we are coupling them with these, what are we consider to be the 3 most important publishing events of the year, because they don't really talk to indie authors all that well. So, I mean, they are getting a little bit better, but for example, last year I was at Frankfurt and the author centre there was completely empty. Yeah. I mean, not one other person besides myself. So there is definitely a long way to go. And I think London was moving really well a couple of years ago, but a bit of a sense this year, I think, that the London Book Fair is not as author friendly, certainly as indie author friendly as it was last year or the year before. That remains to be seen to some degree. So we have some live events at each of the fairs themselves, but our main activity is online because our authors are all over the world. And while some people will be coming to London and to Chicago for London and BEA over the next 2 months, most of our members won't be making it, and most indie authors won't be making it. So online is where we do our business. So online is where the conference is going to be. So lots of great people, including your good self, and you know,
and your good self.
Well, yes, and lots of people that would be very familiar to authors on the indie scene. We're delighted to have the likes of David Cochran, Victoria Strauss, Mark Dawson, Nick Stevenson, Mark Coker, Joel Friedlander, and many, many more. I'm forgive me those I have not mentioned. I could just go on kind of talking because everybody is incredibly generous with their time and with their efforts and their dedication to the cause. It's unbelievable, really. So it means that it's all free. And authors, all they need to do is just kind of sign up to register. And this is not a member-only event. This is open to indie authors everywhere. So tell your friends, spread the word, and let's make it the biggest gathering of indies online in 2016.
Yeah, and you're just getting the URL sorted, aren't you? It's on the selfpublishingadvice.org, but in the next week, so by the end of March, it will be at Indie Author Fringe.
Or even much sooner than that. I just spoke to David, actually, and he's just done the redirect, so it should be there very shortly. But if you go to the Author Advice Centre at selfpublishingadvice.org and just have a look there, or if you Google Indie Author Fringe, you'll get it.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to find.
And yes, sign up for those sessions, and there'll be loads of giveaways. And I'm doing a session on audio for podcasting and audiobooks, and giving away some audiobooks. And so registering is good, but if you miss a session, you can look at it online afterwards, so you don't have to be on London time to see some of the London sessions, for example. So
exactly.
and vice versa.
It will run for 24 hours, so 24 sessions, 24 hours, so that somebody is always getting something at their time of being awake. But they will live online, for almost a year, for the rest of this year. So there's no mad hurry, because what we found last year was that people wanted to watch some of them again and again, because they are packed full of information, and it depends on what stage of your journey you're at. So what we're trying to do roughly, though not kind of in a real, sort of rigid way, but the year will mirror the author journey. So the beginning London Book Fair is mostly about making the book, and BA is mostly about selling the book and marketing the book, and then Frankfurt is mostly about selling the book and selling the rights that are inherent in the book. So in a way, it sort of mirrors the journey that an indie takes when they decide to self-publish.
Fantastic. Okay, so any other update you want to give?
Is there anything else in the world besides the Indie Author Fringe at the moment? I don't think so.
Well, actually, I'm getting ready to go to Austin for the Smarter Artist Summit. So there is something else going on. I'll be talking on the future of publishing, and I'm just preparing that now, and very excited about that, and meeting loads of people I've only ever been online with, like the boys from the Self-Publishing Podcast who've been my online friends for years, and I'm finally going to meet them. So that will be fun, and I think there'll be an Instagram and a Twitter back channel, so people can be watching that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
I'm really interested that you're going to that, actually, and I was saying to you, I think before that, I'm noticing this year particularly that most people who were attending conferences, those who are kind of shall we say well along on their indie pathway, are tending to go to conferences that are not directly publishing conferences. And now, I mean, I know you've decided to go to this because presumably you were invited to speak, but it does sound like a really interesting conference.
Yeah, and the other one I'm speaking at is Digital Commerce Summit, which is actually more about online business in general. And I think you're right. And I think that's just because a lot of the writers' conferences are aimed at people who either haven't written a book before and are writing their first book, or people who've only just kind of started out. And so those of us who are kind of a bit further ahead, looking at, let's face it, I'm running a big business now, and actually, I'll tell you what is interesting: the launch this week of Mark Dawson's new podcast, which is the self-publishingformula.com, and he has Marie Force on, and I really advise people to go listen to that, because Marie is an 8-figure author, and that is, to me, that's like wow. And I know it's not all about the money, but the fact is she started 5-6 years ago, rejected by traditional publishing, and has gone on to create these incredibly high-selling series. And how she's interviewed in the podcast, and it's such a fascinating story and very inspiring to me. And
she's amazing. Actually, we have her on the blog.
Yes, that's why I noticed. Yes, she was on this week.
Yes.
That's super inspiring. So, all of us learn from different people at different points in the journey. So that's really important. And actually, it was quite funny. I had a guy on my podcast this week, Ron Vital, and I got a comment saying it was great for you to interview someone who's only just started. Because it really... Yeah, it made me think. So I think we all learn at different points. Okay, so I wanted to, just my personal update on writing, because I am writing, is that I did the final edit on Destroyer of Worlds, well, almost final edit, got it sent to my proofreader and also a beta reader in India to check my Indian book for really bad mistakes. And I wanted to mention it because I really am at that point of, I do not ever want to see that book again. And yet it's going to come back in 2 weeks' time, and I'm going to have to do it one more time.
It's that final one that always kills you. That really makes sure you're totally sick of it. But this was quick. I mean, it didn't take you. You get sick of books very quickly. I mean, I carried them for years.
Yeah, no, good point. And I also wanted to mention this week publishing news update, which I'm excited about, is Audible has launched a new clips functionality, which means if you're listening to audiobooks on your phone, as I do and many people do, you can actually select an audio clip and you can email it or share it on social media or Facebook with people who do not have Audible. So this is massive for audio, because until now we've had to do that with Soundcloud and it hasn't been connected to the book. You can link it, but it's not native to Audible. So I see this as the next step in audio. I also think that I've seen my own audio income dropping because of, I think, the widespread adoption of Audible as a subscription service, which has meant that we get paid for the subscription rate rather than the buy rate. Now, this is negative in the short term, but positive in the long term for everybody, because I think audio is becoming more normal. I've certainly, as a massive audio consumer, I consume a lot more audiobooks now, and Jonathan, my husband, is like, has won all these badges. You get badges on Audible, it's gamified, and you know, he loves it. So I think this clips functionality, I would advise everyone who has an audiobook, or if you listen, have a play with it, and I think it will start spreading audio into the mainstream.
Another really clever move by Amazon.
Oh yeah. And actually in Austin, I'm going to be talking to some guys who really do very professional audiobooks, so I'm very excited about that. Okay, let's get on to questions, because we have loads. Okay, BB says, I would like to know about formatting. I paid up front with a formatter and felt badly served. I don't want to do it myself. Do you have a list of formatters who have good English and are responsible? And I don't know whether, I think this is print formatting. It might also be
maybe
ebook.
not.
It might be both. Yeah.
Could be either, because I think the term is usually, well, different people use different terms, but it's often formatting for ebook and typesetting for print, but it depends.
I would never use the term typesetting. I would use formatting for both.
Would you?
Yeah.
But you're not a print.
I wouldn't. Typesetting? How old are you?
I'm very old, you know that.
Anyway, would you like to advise on formatting?
Formatting. Well, we do have a list, and it's in our directory, and it's constantly being updated, and then the next update will be in May. But there are plenty of good people there who do a good job, and that we've got lots of very positive feedback about. Personally, for my own ebook formatting, I use Scrivener. So for simple text ebooks, I just you get a nice formatting sort of result from Scrivener, and lots of other different software that I haven't tried. So that is an option if you're looking at ebooks alone and you kind of want to, you know, you're good at that kind of thing. Well, you don't have to be very good at it. Actually, it makes it very easy, and you like to check it yourself. So in terms of if you are not served well, do make sure that you go back to the person, explain why you weren't, and you know, come to some agreement and arrangement. But yeah, if you have a look at the directory, which you'll find in the member zone.
Yeah, and I also have a list at thecreativepenn.com/formatting. I have a whole load of stuff there. Okay, next question. Another kind of formatting thing. Claire says, publishing on Kindle. How do I make the front matter and chapter headings look good? I see other books with great capital letters, wonderful imprint logos, and symbols between sections. Okay, so I think this is vellum. Have you seen vellum?
It could be vellum. I mean, it's a formatting question. You're asking formatting question. Vellum works for Mac, and can do reasonable PDFs, but you know, a good formatter will add flourishes and nice kind of bits and pieces and things that I certainly don't know how to do in Scrivener, though you can import, I know, symbols and things and get quite creative about it. I don't want to do that. I just want to put the novel out there. And so yeah, it's something that you can discuss with your formatter if you have a formatter. And do you know any, I mean, Joel Freelander, the bookdesigner.com, is the guy who talks about typesetting and formatting in great detail. He's really fantastic, and he does lots of templates and things which, you know, will fulfill your needs, and no matter what they are. So that's also another option to help you along. Yeah,
so bookdesigntemplates.com is Joel's, where you can get ebook and print book formats, so that's really handy. And vellum.com Pub is as you say, is a Mac thing where you can format really pretty ebooks. What I would say is be very careful of your file size, because if you start adding these little flourish, images at the top of each chapter, your file size will be bigger. And if you look on your KDP, you'll actually see that the delivery cost, which is very, very small if you have a plain text file, if you put loads of images in, it will get bigger, and that will eat into your profit. So do you really care that much? I think right now, as someone who predominantly, I read on this, I don't want to see a big picture, so it's got to resize. So be very careful with your formatting, because it has to look good on my phone. That's, I'm a hardcore digital reader, so you definitely can't have something that looks amazing on an iPad and looks terrible on an iPhone, so or any other type of smartphone. Okay, lots of formatting questions. Okay, 2 questions about Ingram Spark. So David says, what company do you recommend for non-fiction hardback? And then Mark says, I need information about Ingram Spark. Are they a good choice? So I've put these 2 together because hardback, our only option is Ingram Spark, right? So can you talk about those options?
Well, Ingram Spark is the only, it's the best option for hardback POD. But of course, there are lots of options if you're going to do a consignment print run, which is a slightly different thing. So we recommend, certainly when you're starting off with print, that you should start with print on demand. It means you don't have stock sitting around, your investment up front is minimized, and you can get some sales under your belt before you start investing in larger print runs. Unless you have, you're writing nonfiction or something akin to that, where you already have a sales funnel set up that it goes direct. Really, print on demand makes total sense. So Ingram does a very nice hardback POD option, and definitely Spark is the way to go, I think, if that's what you're considering. Having said that, I did last year myself a 500 print run hardback with a printer here in London, Clays, and I was really happy with that experience. It was a completely different way to go about the job. So it depends on your outlet. If you don't have a distribution set up, then Ingram distributes to all the bookstores all over the world. So you might want to, even if you did a consignment run, also do that for print on demand. CreateSpace is the other majorly recommended print service, but they don't have a hardback option as yet.
Yeah, but basically, if you're doing DIY print on demand, the Alliance and us as authors recommend CreateSpace or Ingram Spark. Those are the 2.
Yeah, both, and it's not an either or.
Yes, sorry, not an either or. We recommend those 2. You can use either or both together, but there is no other single company that we point people to unless they have a more developed business model where they might be doing a separate print run.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Another different Mark says, I still see a ton of indie book covers out there that make me want to cry because they're so bad and amateur looking. What are your opinions on this? Do you think that by the end of 2016 and beyond, poorly executed indie book covers will become a thing of the past? I'm going to answer this first. I don't think we will see the end of amateur and terrible covers. And I think there'll be 2 reasons. I think one, what you consider a terrible cover to, may well be an amazing cover to somebody else. So you may not be the audience for that book. For example, if you look at book covers in Malaysia, Indonesia, compared to Britain, or India, cultures where they have generally brighter colours, and the culture is more colourful than Britain, you will find a very different taste. And I'm waiting for the day when we can upload different covers by market, because I would like to use a different cover for America even than Britain. For example, we don't have guns, and I write thrillers. So I put a gun on my cover, then British people go, we don't have guns. So like that's one thing. And then my second reason will be that self-publishing is an open game. Not everyone's doing this professionally. So my 9-year-old niece self-published a book, and she did a collage, and that's her cover. You would say that is a poor cover. Who cares? So there will always be people who self-publish for the fun of it, for the family, for whatever. So I would just say it doesn't matter. Focus on your own books, you know, compete against yourself and what you want to achieve, and forget about other people, about what they're doing. Do your best for whatever the reason you're self-publishing.
Yeah, completely agree. I think the question arises out of something that is a widespread sort of streak within the indie movement, which is that, you know, we need to get everybody up to professional standards so that somebody who I'm not sure will think we're good enough. And I'm not sure who we're thinking about when we're thinking that way. And, you know, there will always be people who are just starting off on their indie journey. There will always be, aside from, you know, what Joanna was talking about, there are some absolutely awful covers and some absolutely awful books in this world. It, as Joanna says, doesn't matter. Focusing on that is a waste of creative energy. It's the genie is out of the box, you know, it's never going back in. This world is never going to be neat, tidy, orderly, and all lined up. And actually, the super professional cover is a very new thing in publishing. It you know, for years, trade publishing, aside from huge publishers like Penguin, put out, you know, pretty raw kind of covers, and they have their own appeal. I think sometimes a truly awful cover can actually draw you to the book. So anyway, forget about it. As Joanna says, concentrate on your own work. Don't look right or left, and don't worry about somebody else approving or saying you're good enough or whatever. The best answer to all of that is to just be proud of your own book.
Yeah. James says, I'm looking for a calendar that charts the months and weeks leading up to a book's release, citing sending out for reviews, announcements, etc. And again, we're going to hat tip Joel Friedlander, who has a great site, bookplanner.com. And Joel actually sells a template for timing all of these things. So you can say, enter in the date that you want to publish the book, and it will calculate all the dates when you need stuff. So that's quite a new thing. That's at bookplanner.com. That's the only one I know. Do you know of any other?
No, I don't know of any other. And I think, you know, that's a really useful thing to do. And I think it's great that you are actually thinking about that in those terms, because I know an awful lot of us just think about, oh, I want to write the book, and then you write the book, and then you kind of publish it, and then, oh, what now, what next, kind of thing. So yeah, planning is good.
Yeah, well done, James. Right, now this is a great question from Obadiah, who says, I wish to publish books on rural libraries. I have over 25 years of experience in the facilitation of rural libraries in Zimbabwe. I'm the inventor of the first ever donkey-drawn mobile libraries concept. I love this, that is operational in Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. We're a truly international community. I've developed scripts for the following books I want to publish, basically about mobile libraries. How can I have these books published and sold widely? So the reason I wanted to just mention this was mainly because it's such an interesting question from a part of the world that we don't necessarily hear from, although, you know, we're getting much more into Africa and South America and Asia. You know, at the moment, the indie movement is expanding. I would say that in terms of the donkey-drawn mobile library concept, Obadiah, that your market for these books will probably be quite small in terms of selling them globally. So the actual process for publishing will be exactly the same as publishing any other book. The topic of the book is not really the question, but because you're in Zimbabwe, what I've heard from other African authors is that often KDP, Kobo, some of these iBooks, etc., can't actually pay some countries. So, but going through Smashwords or Draft to Digital for ebooks is going to be the way to do that. I'm not quite sure about the print side of it. And then I just wanted to add on the future of publishing, that what I've been reading about the development of drone technology is that there's a massive push for using drones to deliver into rural Africa as the first push for drone delivery, because the West is over-regulated, and this technology exists already. I mean, obviously they're going to start by delivering first aid type equipment and health related stuff, but I absolutely can't see why they wouldn't be delivering books as well by drone within the next 5 years. It's got to be. And then I actually think Africa, Asia, South America will be the forefront of drone delivery, and we in the West will be secondary, because we already have so much legislation. So those are some of my thoughts. Orna,
fascinating.
Any thoughts on this?
Couldn't possibly follow that. Drones make the donkeys redundant, which is so interesting. Yeah, great.
Oh, really? You don't have anything?
I really have nothing to add.
Okay, you can take the next question then.
Okay.
Ruth says, once you've self-published, what would it take for an agent to be interested in picking up future books or even existing ones?
50,000 sales. That's the sort of figure that's kind of bandied about as the point at which trade publishing becomes interested in a self-publisher. But of course, 50,000 it's a very kind of blunt yardstick, because in some genre that's, you know, almost impossible, and in others it's only kind of getting started. And also KU and all of that complicates what is a sale these days, you know. So, but in you know, the short answer is sales, generally speaking. So a literary agent is, when it comes to self-publishers, is only interested if you have already proven that you can reach readers. And at that point, then you find that both trade publishers and literary agents and literary scouts will become interested in you, because all of these people are kind of scouting the charts now and looking at promising self-publishers, and where there is money to be made, they are interested. So yeah, the short answer is sales.
Yeah, and again, it's one of these really random things where as soon as you get to the point where you would be valuable to an agent or a publisher, that's the point when you realize you don't need an agent or a publisher. So it is interesting, because I'm hearing from some of my traditionally published friends and agents and things that they wouldn't pick up a highly successful indie anymore, because, you know, one, I think we're probably quite difficult to work with because we know what we want. Although I think some of the American agents, you know, are more happy that way, but that they're almost potentially looking for people before they get super big. Although we've obviously seen some 7- and 8-figure deals from the mainly, let's face it, romance authors.
Yeah, pretty much romance, fantasy, some kind of mystery, and science fiction. Definitely a growing interest. Particularly since The Martian. So there's a whole thing in publishing where everybody jumps on a bandwagon and things are kind of hot for a while and then they cool off, and it's, you know, you see the cycles go round and round and round over time. I wouldn't pay too much attention to any of this. Hugh Howey was very interesting on this, I think, some years ago, when he kind of was starting, about how his confidence was just ahead of. So, you know, if an offer had come literally 3 months before, he would have jumped at it, but it just came at the time where it just, you know, his confidence was increasing, and then he, of course, is one of the people who managed it extremely well, and just did print deal for a book famously, and so on. So if you're just starting off, listen, don't be thinking about things like that. There is no rush with any of that. What you need to do, what we all need to do, is learn how to please and reach our readers. And once you've learned how to do that, more and more options open up for you. So
yeah, and I had a thing on the long-term view. I don't know if people have seen that. I think it's Netflix has picked up the Shannara Chronicles. Have you heard about this? And
no.
when I was a teenager, like 14, 15, I read all the Shannara books. So the Sword of Shannara and the Elf Stones of Shannara. You know, I was into all that fantasy back then. And what's so interesting is I just looked it up now. The Sword of Shannara was published 1977. Now, when you talk about the cycles coming round again, the only reason the Shannara Chronicles has been made is George R.R. Martin, right?
Sure.
It is Game of Thrones. It's the cycle has come round again. And Terry Brooks, you know, pretty much probably thought this would never happen. You know, there are people who've had these film and TV, you know, potentially sold rights or whatever, years and years and over, and they've never happened. And then something happens in the zeitgeist, and then suddenly these things get made. So, you know, I'm waiting for the religious thriller to come round again, the Dan Brown cycle, which eventually will re-emerge around, you know, shame I missed that on the millennium. But, you know, these are things that will come around again. So I think this long-term view is so important. And you see it kind of everywhere, the things just re-emerging, like Anne Rice, who's made, you know, millions out of vampires 3 times in her career as the cycles of vampires come around again. So yeah, no short-term thinking, people.
Yeah, this is definitely long-term business. And I think when you're starting off, it's very hard to kind of see that. And, you know, you put so much work into writing a book and then into publishing it and, you know, learning how to do it, and then into the challenge of kind of reaching readers. And the idea of kind of going again and again is daunting, but really that's what it is about. And it isn't something that you do for short term. It just doesn't make sense to go into book publishing unless you can take a long-term view, because you will just be very unhappy. It really is. I don't, you know, there are a few exceptions of debut authors who have you know, done unbelievably well with their first book and stayed the pace. Really, there are very few. Most people who do well in publishing, it's been a slow sort of, you know, the 20-year build to overnight success kind of thing. So yes.
Yeah. And I wonder as well, you know, the more we get into the kind of indie space, if you don't enjoy all the aspects of doing this, like I truly love pretty much everything. I know I said I got sick of the final draft, but it passes, and as soon as, you know, it'll be done.
That's just the process. You have to get to that point of being tired of the book to let it go. Yeah.
But I feel like I love every part of it, including the marketing, including the connecting with readers, including the technical stuff, including the creative and the writing and all that, and everything we learn and everything. And of course there are difficult days like in any job, but I think if you don't actually love all of this, then you will inevitably drop out, because you can't keep it up otherwise. So either then you want a traditional publisher, or maybe you end up not writing anymore, or you write but you don't write for publication or whatever. I think everyone needs to be a lot more kind of honest with themselves, like what do you really love? And, you know, sometimes maybe there is that one book in you, and then that's it, does that, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to do everything all the time like some of us do. It doesn't have to be like that. So yeah, I hope people can be kind of honest about what they want to achieve with their projects, and then, you know, don't sign up for the life of this unless you really love it.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here, I think, is sustainability. And while there are bits you can outsource, I can't say that I love all the technical aspects of it. But, you know, I do like the learning by doing, but I don't always have time to take, you know, the amount of time it takes me to learn some technical stuff. So you can outsource some of the things that you don't like. But what you can't outsource is the writing. And I don't think you can outsource the reaching the reader either. And, you know, I think the idea that you gave your book to be marketed by somebody else could only happen in the trade publishing system, whereby you had sort of newspapers that did the pushing the books out, and magazines, you know, traditional media, and bookstores where people were able to go in and browse and pick and choose and so on. In that environment, okay, you could outsource marketing. But in today's environment, whether you're trade published or self-published, you can't outsource marketing. Marketing is about making that vital connection with the reader. And I think that has to come from the same place as the book came from. And you have to see that sort of that outreach as part of your writing tasks. Otherwise, I don't think this is sustainable, actually.
And we'll, I've noticed, because I started doing this in 2008, started the blog in 2008, so actually started getting to know people online. A ton of people that I met in those early days are not doing this anymore. There are very few people I know from back then. And I met Mark Coker and Joel Friedlander, and this was before I met. No, it was before I met you.
Okay.
But it really, it's incredible how few people are left after, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So it is a really a long-term thing. Anyway, moving on. Question Janet said, oh, this is coming back to formatting. We've got a lot of formatting today. I know that including illustrations in an ebook increases the cost. Is there a way to get an estimate of what it would take to add 1 or more black and white photos to my text? Depending on cost, I might spring for 1 or 2 photos, but if cost is not too bad, I might add more. I would say the only way to test is actually by getting some dummy photos, or if you can, just use the photos and upload that file. Like, create a new project on KDP. Like, don't overwrite if you've already published it, don't overwrite your existing file. Create a new project, upload the book, and then see what Amazon says is the cost. And that will be the only way. I can't see any other way you'd get an estimate unless you try it.
Sounds reasonable. Yeah.
And there's no worries with doing that. You can do that. It's not a problem. You can upload stuff and then delete it. Just because you go on KDP, you don't have to publish things. Same if anyone's listening who hasn't actually done this before, you can just go in and create a project and have a look at the fields, and you don't have to do anything other than have a look, or step through the process. Just don't hit publish at the end. So don't be afraid of the tech. You just got to have a play. Okay, Chan Reethi sent 14 questions, and we can't answer. Yeah, so we can't answer all 14. So we'll answer a couple because we haven't got time to do all of that for one person. But if we miss things, or if anyone else listening has questions, please do add them to the form, which you get sent as part of your membership. So I'm going to ask a couple because, again, they're kind of book designs. Should proofreading of a manuscript happen after the interior book layout? No.
No. So what happens is, with editing is, first of all, you get your copy edit done. Well, you may get a structural edit and so on, but copy editing first, which will include a line edit, and then proofreading, and only then when you have the final text, it sort of moves then into production, you might say, and that's a different, it's a different part of the process, and so your manuscript should be finished and done with at that point.
I think maybe if you come from a traditional publishing background, don't they also send a formatted proof off when it's all done, and then you have to check it again? I mean, we just don't do it that way, do we? I wouldn't pay for a formatter unless I was happy with the text, basically.
Exactly, because you're going to have to go back then and do it again. So yeah, the traditional way was you'd get your galleys, because it was all done by hand, and you could find up the page 16 was put in upside down or whatever. So yeah, but now, no, get it all done up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working with a book cover designer for eBack, paperback and hardback for my first novel. If I pay for those services, do I own the rights to the covers?
Well, yeah, rights to covers. Yeah, you have the right to, license. What happens is you license the cover for use in book publishing. So you don't actually own the rights outright, but you have enough rights to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I think that question, I've had this from a number of people. As far as I'm concerned, the book cover designer has every right to put that cover on their blog or on their website as a portfolio to say, I designed this cover. And also my covers have, JD Smith, design on the back, and previous cover designers, plus inside the book it says the name and the URL of the cover designer. So that's what you're paying for. Also, unless you have a cover shoot, which again a lot of the romance authors have, these professional photo shoots, we're all using stock photography. Again, you don't have any exclusive right on that. Other people will use the same stock photography. So I guess it is quite a difficult thing. The one thing I would say is be very wary of those sites where you can get covers and things, but they have limits on how many you can sell before you have to pay more. So be really wary with that. Royalty-free sites are really important if you're getting cover images.
Absolutely. And the crediting, I'm really glad you brought that up, the crediting of the designer. I think in publishing in the past, maybe that the people in the background of a book and the designer would be that didn't always get the credit that was due. And I think one of the nice things about the indie movement is there's very much a sense of a shared project around cover. The cover is my favorite part of the process, probably. And it is a sense of kind of two creatives coming from different perspectives working together, and really important that we credit our book designers, because honestly, if our books are selling, it's largely down to them, because before anybody reads a word of ours, they have to get past the cover and be attracted by the cover. So yeah, really, really important to credit them, and indeed our editors, without whom, we are nothing. So yeah, these people really are so integral to the making of a good book. It's really important to credit.
Yeah. And then final question, and because I always have to put one in about ISBNs. If I get an audio, if I do an audiobook, do I need to use an ISBN for an audiobook? And do I only need to use one ISBN for all ebooks?
You need an ISBN, a separate ISBN for each format of your book. So one for an ebook, one for a POD, one if you did a separate print edition, like a hardback or something like that, and a separate one for your audiobook. Yes. So the idea of an ISBN, if you understand the idea of it, then you understand why you need that. The idea of an ISBN is that if somebody in the book business, like a librarian or a bookseller, or somebody wants to order your book and they don't want to get the audiobook, they want to get the hardback, there is no way by looking at just author name and title of book that they can distinguish the format, and the ISBN is the way of making sure that the format is distinguished. Also, if you do end up selling your book through a sort of point of sale, the ISBN will be used to create the barcode. So it's important that you have one for each separate edition.
And as ever, it's the only thing we disagree on. I don't own my own ISBNs. I only use free ones. So you don't actually need an ISBN to sell and make money as an author. That's one of those, as far as I'm concerned, a legacy idea. But that's not my opinion is my opinion, not the official Alliance of Independent Authors opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, you still do need an ISBN. What Joanna's talking about is whether you purchase your own ISBNs and use those, or whether you use those belonging to the services. And we've gone through that particular argument so many times on this show. I think we'll give it a skip tonight.
I mean, we have to disagree on something. Okay, so Kelly says, if you manage to set your ebook price at free on Amazon, having them price match, when you want to end the free promo, how long does Amazon take to revert? Basically, if you're selling lots, they'll revert quite quickly. If you're not selling anything, then go on to Amazon Author Central and email them through Author Central. That is the fastest way to get any changes to your book. And just say, by the way, my book is now $2.99 at iBooks, and they will change it back pretty quick.
Yeah, they're incredibly responsive, actually. Customer service has just got better and better, I think, over the time.
But I always find that it's quicker if you log into Amazon Author Central and raise the thing.
Absolutely, there. Without a doubt.
Yeah, because then it's attached to your author profile, and they don't have to check things out or anything. They just see it's you. Okay, Skip says, what are your current thoughts about Archway? I'm looking at them as assisted publishing for an adventure memoir.
Not recommended. Archway is the self-publishing wing of Simon & Schuster, and it is essentially an author solutions imprint, and there are far more reasonable services that do better customer service and that are more sales driven. So if you want to give us if you want to email us directly about that, Skip, we will be able to point you in the right direction. Would just need to get a little bit more information about exactly what sort of assistance you're looking for, and then we should be able to help you. But it's an expensive service and not one we'd be rushing to recommend, no.
Yes, and my stock answer with all this is go and look at Choosing a Self-Publishing Service by the Alliance of Independent Authors, or if you're a member, you have that free in the members area, and that will explain the things you need to know in order to make a decision about if you want to use assisted publishing, which many people do, how to evaluate the best services that are value for money and that will give you the best product. So that's probably the best idea.
Absolutely, I should have thought of that.
What, that book you wrote?
Yes, that took so long to put together. Yeah.
And then actually talking about assisted publishing, Mary says, hello, thank you for the Q&A in February, which I've just watched and found it inspiring. Fantastic. Thank you, Mary. We love hearing that people enjoy this Q&A session, which is great. I signed a contract with Matador to publish and help market it. I value your advice at the beginning of the process. What should I be aware of? And what should I do myself? What should I have them do? What do you think?
Okay, well, Matador is a partner member of the Alliance, and we get a lot of very positive feedback about Matador as an assisted service. In terms of what you want to pay them to do and without knowing more about your specific book, what genre it's in and what your hopes and expectations are for the book, it's difficult to comment. One of the things that's great about Matador, one of the reasons that we really like this service, is that you can do the pick and mix thing. So you don't have to buy a package that's kind of cradle to grave. You can decide to, just use them for editorial even, or just use them to put together, but you do your own marketing, or just use them for marketing or sales into the bookstores, but not necessarily use them to put the book together. So I really don't think I can offer any useful advice without knowing more. So again, if like Skip, you would like to contact us directly and give us a bit more information, Mary, then we should be able to help you a bit more. And I would also say to have a chat with the people at Matador who are extremely helpful. They have a very good customer service people there, and they're not terribly salesy. They will tell you what they're offering, but they're not going to push you into anything that's wrong for your book because they want you to come back the next time. So,
yeah. And again, Choosing a Self-Publishing Service has information on that.
Yes, I suppose what is good there is that you get the right questions to ask of any service and of yourself, because very often it's about you deciding what's most important to you. That's where you should put your money.
Yeah, and we just have time for one more question, because I think this does fit into the author services section. Basically, should I do a book tour to actual physical bookstores in cities, or should I pay for an online blog tour, or should I pay for a publicist? This is a general question about paying for services around book tours, publicists, festivals. And I noticed that at the Indie Author Fringe, David Gottgren is doing a session on beware of festivals. Orna, what is your current thought about paying for services like book tours, blog tours, festivals, and publicists?
Generally speaking, you know, there are always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, I would say don't go near that until you've learned how to sell books yourself. And so certainly, you know, going from city to city to do a book tour of bookshops or book events is really expensive and very time consuming, and you know, without the proper supports in place, it's not going to work. So I mean, this is the kind of thing that a highly recognized branded author does, and you know, with support from their publisher, with a media campaign behind them. And this sort of thing doesn't happen in trade publishing for somebody until they've actually made it. And I would say the same should apply in indie publishing. So until you have, you know, fans that are really looking forward to you arriving into town and are going to come out and actually you know, be delighted that you're there, it's quite likely that you will rustle up a few people maybe, but it's not going to be a very enjoyable experience. So I certainly, now there are exceptions. It depends. If it's a non-fiction book and there is a very targeted audience and the service is very clued into them and, you know, can kind of reach a lot of people that you wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. But if we're talking general fiction writing, if that will be my opinion. Blog tours, online blog tours, a couple of years ago, I think they were, you know, they did well for writers. Not getting great feedback, generally speaking, on blog tours for fiction anymore. So I think the best investment you can put into reaching readers is your time and your genuine interest in building your readership. And while you write another book. So the best thing you can do to sell this book is probably to write another one rather than go off promoting this one from city to city.
Yeah, and again, coming back to that interview with Marie Force on the Alliance blog, and also that interview, she, you know, she pretty much said that her number one thing is having a free first in series, and this is someone who is making 8 figures. Now, a lot of people say free is done, but it's not. And I find the same thing. Like my free first in series, again, it gets, you know, 100 plus a day downloads, which trickles into the rest of the series. So I would say you're exactly right. Don't spend the time and money doing these other things. Write something that you can give away for free that links into your book. And that can be non-fiction, that can be fiction. If it's literary fiction, write a short story, whatever you do. But actually having something for free, it's like a taster in a supermarket. People don't try a new cheese or a new wine unless they have a little taste, and it doesn't devalue the cheese or the wine. So that's super important. And I think when I read questions like this, I feel that it's almost part of some of these services that are marketed to new authors that play on the dream of what being an author used to be. Or maybe it never was. Maybe it's a dream that's just been perpetuated and it's actually been a lie, because I've never really heard any author say, but, you know, book tours, you know, physical book tours have been amazing for me. Even big name authors have had those awful sitting in a room on their own type of experience, which, you know, most of us are introverts. We don't want to be doing that anyway. So I would say a lot of these companies are kind of playing on the dream of, oh, you're going to make it really big with this first book. But it's incredibly unlikely. So you save your money and spend that time on writing more. And yeah, I think that's probably the best tip. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. If you have questions, you can ask us for next month. Our next Q&A will be 26th of April, and that will be after the Indie Author Fringe. So please go to indieauthorfringe.com in the next 24 hours if you're listening live. If you're not, from the 24th of March, go to indieauthorfringe.com and sign up, and you can get loads of great information there. Anything else to add, Orna?
No, I think that's it. We're pretty much out of time. So yeah, thank you for your questions and keep them coming, and have a great writing month.
Yeah, we'll see you next month. Bye.
Take care. Bye.